Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to another edition of the Primetime Rundown interview series powered by StreamYard right here on the Eastern Observer alongside Adelphi softball senior pitcher Nicole Mangold. I'm Joey Jarzinka. Thank you so much for joining me, Nicole, and let's get things started here. How has quarantine been for you? Obviously, we have just surpassed the 1 year anniversary mark of our sports world shutting down. How have things been for you?
It's been very different, to say the least, especially since being a senior, I've gone through 2 complete years of just normal practices and lifts and just anything being normal prior to the pandemic. So it's definitely different coming into my senior year, and everything's different, whether it's different groups of practicing, different times of practice, and not being allowed to do this, but we're allowed to do this. It's definitely a game changer. It's definitely something that we've had to adapt with, but the coaches have been amazing. So it's definitely been an easier adjustment. And I think right now we're at the point where it's sad to say, but we're used to it, but we're definitely getting better at adjusting to everything that's happened.
March 14th, 2021, the day that we are speaking here, and we are roughly about 367 days past the day the world stopped and our sports world shut down as well. And March 12th, 2020, what was going through your mind when you guys were on your way home from Florida?
On our way home from Florida, we were ready to go. We were at that time, the coronavirus wasn't a big thing exactly in the US, so we weren't expecting our season to be canceled. So by the time we got back, in the matter of 3 days, we got the notification that our seasons were canceled. So it was definitely out of left field, pun not included or anything, but we weren't thinking that was going to happen. So all of a sudden they said our season was postponed, and then a few hours later it was canceled and all. So we were definitely not prepared for that to happen. So then to go home and do all the classes online, it was something that we were not ready for. And I think last year we had a lot of people that had great talent and great ability. And I think that was a year that was wasted. And I think that returners have a lot to prove coming into this year. And I think the freshmen know that we have a lot to prove as well.
Going back to last year and to the game against Tiffin University on March 7th, you guys had won 10-1 in 5 innings of play. And that was following a rough stretch of 6 consecutive losses. When you guys had your season canceled and essentially the whole country and whole world stopped, did you as an upperclassman say to yourself that, coming into this season, there was some unfinished business?
Oh, most definitely. Because we've definitely gone through, coming from my sophomore year, so 2019 season, we were cut short with postseason, and I think we could have definitely gone along a lot further than we did. So even going into our junior year, we were like, okay, we got a lot to prove, and we had the ability to do it, and we had the knowledge to do it, and the softball IQ to do it. Yeah. But then coronavirus happened, and we had no way of proving that. So then going into this year and being able to come back on campus and being able to participate in our practices and sports, and that definitely was another push to say, okay, this is where it's getting serious. This is when we need to prove ourselves.
Yeah. And going back to during the COVID era, when you guys were told that workouts were not allowed to occur, team bonding was not allowed to occur in person, and everything was moved to Zoom. Everything was moved to StreamYard, to Teams, wherever it may be, like what we're doing right now. And you would congregate with all of your teammates, all of your coaches. What was the message from the whole coaching staff when that all occurred? And your first Zoom call was, inside, obviously, you're on a computer, you can't really do anything. NCAA rules, you're not allowed to do certain things. What was the message from the coaching staff at that time?
The message was pretty clear. Obviously, we can't be mandated to do anything, but at the same time, our program has always been one to want to do more than anybody else. So we're kind of used to that. So it was more on us to keep it going. So I know for me personally, I felt as though my junior year in the fall, I made tremendous progress. And obviously to be let down like this after Florida, before the season got started, I was like, what the heck? So I kind of I had to maintain like a lot of stuff, and so does all the new freshmen that came that year. Yeah. And so it was put on our shoulders to maintain everything as much as we could, whether we needed to get to our own facility available at home or find a park to go throw at or go hit at. So it was definitely on us to maintain what the coaches did for us and what we were able to accomplish last year, and bring it to hopefully the fall. At that time, we didn't know if we were coming back. So it was all in anticipation.
When you have 8 incoming freshmen and you're obviously a senior now, mm-hmm. And you being a leader and the rest of your upperclassmen teammates, how difficult was it to kind of get them acclimated to a brand new experience that, unbeknownst to you, to anybody else, it's a brand new journey that these freshmen have to walk down, and you as well, for every human. It is uncharted territory. How difficult was it for you to lead them down that weird road?
It was very difficult because me coming into a few years, I realized that the juniors and the seniors, you relied on them because they knew what was going on. They knew that what was coming, but I had no idea. I've never been through a pandemic, but yeah. So I've never had to deal with protocols, guidelines, and masks and different times of practice. So I really had no idea what to tell them, which was the most terrible thing, because I always want to be the one to be able to tell them the answers, the right answers, be there for their questions. But I wasn't able to for certain things. Obviously the softball side, the technicality of that stuff I was able to help with, but everything else with the uncertainty of practice, getting tested, doing all this stuff, it was uncharted territory for me as well. So it was very frustrating, but I knew coming into this year, I had to be ahead of everybody else so I could help them. So I was definitely trying to pick up things as quick as I could so I could help the 8 freshmen and as well as the sophomores.
During the COVID era, or during the lockdown era, if you will, any fun activities that you and your teammates and the coaching staff were able to do, I guess, over Zoom, as difficult as that sounded?
Yeah, we definitely did a lot of Zoom calls just to get to know the freshmen a lot more, because usually on the summer or even in the spring, we see them come to games or clinics. So we're able to bond that way. But obviously we were in lockdown, so we couldn't travel or anything or be together. So we did a lot of Zoom calls. We actually bonded over a book. So we read a book together and were able to talk about it and reflect on it and even compare it to our softball program. We did a lot of team bonding to get to know each other. We wrote letters to each other and even did some activities to kind of get to know their softball personality as well as just their overall personality, just to get to know them before coming into the fall.
Yeah, and beginning to get to know them sort of on the field, if you will, as opposed to off the field. So that's pretty good there. So 2021, a year later, you guys open up your first 2 games outscoring Felician University by a score of 18-2. Now, coming in ridiculously hot, not really playing a 7-inning game thus far, not at all, not really, you haven't. What is different about this year coming into the season as opposed to years past?
In years past, it's kind of sad, but you don't expect to midway have your season canceled. Yeah. Or have a game canceled and never make it up again. So coming into this season, we don't know what'll happen. As of now, we're playing game to game. So any game could be our last, and that's how we want to be, what we want to leave behind. So we want to make every game our best. God forbid something were to happen and we have to stop for possibly even 2 weeks or just stop in everything. So we don't want terrible games to reflect our season that was taken away from us when we had no idea. So it's kind of like a fuel to our fire almost, because of the uncertainty.
You personally pitched a one-hit shutout, 5 innings in game number 2 on Friday, the 1-year anniversary of COVID. Obviously, not a smiling anniversary, but a one-hit shutout. And I don't know, just by looking at some of your statistics early on, Nicole, safe to say that you're ready to go for this season. But what was the preparation for you personally this year to be able to, pitch lights out in game number 1?
Like I said before, last year I was ready to go.
Yeah.
I felt like I was at almost my peak, and I was ready to go. And then to be let down like that, it definitely made me think like, okay, I want to keep that going or even make it better. So I did all my stuff that I needed to do over quarantine, and then coming into the fall's definitely a struggle with everybody, even myself included, being a senior, of getting back into that groove, getting back into the swing of things. So it definitely had to happen, whether it was easy or not. I had to get back in shape, and helpful coaches of Coach Carla, Coach Brenna, and especially Coach Lou, because he has high hopes for me and the pitchers as well. And he definitely helped me get back into where I left off in the junior year, and even, I think, better than where we left off.
March 18th, this upcoming Thursday, you and your team are back on the field against Georgian Court University in Garden City. Midweek doubleheader. What is your message to the team to keep the early season success going?
I think my message would be to give whatever your 100% is all the time, because like I said earlier, we don't know what's for sure. We don't know what's uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen to us next week. We don't know what's going to happen to us tomorrow. So I think we need to play every game as though it's our last, and every game's the same, and just keep doing what we're doing, because in the first 2 games, I think we did pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to say, by the score, as we brought up earlier, combined 18-2 in those 2 games. So that would be an understatement there, Nicole. So in the bottom of the 7th of our little interview here, during these uncertain and tough times, what would be your advice to upcoming freshmen to basically say, okay, you guys can get through this? And for those that are aspiring softball players, aspiring sports players, or aspiring athletes who do not have the facilities, or they live in an apartment where they were unable to get out of the house, what would be your message to them to, continue their path along chasing their athletic dreams?
My word of advice for any upcoming freshmen, or even freshmen now that might not have the hang of it, because I wouldn't say that I have full control over everything as of now. Yeah. But I would definitely say cling on to all the time that you have. It doesn't seem like it's a lot, or it does seem like it's a lot, but coming from a senior, time does fly by, especially when your season's cut off. So I think just trying to be in the moment, in the now, rather than looking years ahead, I think is definitely important. Especially being a senior, I'm definitely hanging on to the small moments every now and then. And especially during these times, getting out and even just going for a run, or even just doing some sprints, is definitely important, especially in softball. But I know, coming from a small town in Pennsylvania, I don't have these big facilities to go hit or go pitch or do anything of that. So I definitely had to do some unorthodox stuff in my backyard, or even just doing some pitching spins in my living room when there was a lot of snow back home and everything like that. So you definitely have to be a little different and open-minded with all the things that you can do. But it's definitely able to be done when you put your mind to it. And if you want to do it and you believe you can, then you'll find any way of getting it done.
During those snowy days in your hometown of Lititz, Pennsylvania, were there any days of consecutively binge watching anything on Netflix, any other house projects, or additional family time, TV shows, movies, anything along those lines that you were able to to, I guess, gather while you were,
Yeah.
locked away at home?
Yeah, I actually redid my whole bedroom back
Oh,
home.
okay.
That was something that has been long overdue, and I had enough time for it. Definitely a lot of Netflix.
There you go. That's right.
The Crown. I watched The Crown. But yeah, definitely those stuff. And then a lot more family time, more than I was used to. Definitely brought me back to my high school years where we were just in each other's throats all the time. So it was definitely crazy in the Mangle house back home over quarantine. But yeah, it was good to be back to school and everything. And it's not usually said to be, oh, I'm glad to be back at school, but it was definitely a needed break, a needed separation.
Yeah, and then a much needed return to school as well, and to get back to normalcy, if you will. So really glad Nicole Mangold, ladies and gentlemen, Warwick High School alum and Lidditz, Pennsylvania native, a Delphi softball pitcher who is a senior in her final year in Garden City. Nicole, thank you so much for coming on here, and we're really glad to see you back going or in the circle also, but also healthy during this COVID time.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you.